Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of Amateur in the Morning. I am your host, the Forex Amateur. The date today is the 13th of October and it's a beautiful sunny morning down here in Durban, South Africa. That's if you're watching this outside of South Africa. Fingers crossed with the hopes that you are. But anyway, as usual, guys, this is the morning session. And as you know, I like to break down the charts, exactly what I am looking at for the day. Yeah, and hopefully, you can get some guidance from it, some ideas from it, or even some education from it as well for you to be able to take back and apply to your own trading, whether it's on demo, whether it's paper trading, whether it's live trading, it's completely upon you exactly what you'd like to do with your own education, right? So I just want to throw my disclaimer in there. Remember, I'm not qualified to provide any financial advice, any investment advice, or even trading advice. Everything that I speak about on these videos is purely my own opinion of the markets and trades that I'm willing to take with cash that I am willing to risk, right? So ensure that any cash that you invest in your own trading, that you invested based on your own understanding, based on your own analysis and so forth, right? Cool. So let's get straight into it. The watch list has changed a bit, but I'm just going to stick to our old guns so that you guys are able to follow the analysis. Perhaps from the new month, I will then start to introduce the other things that I am currently focusing on, such as step index, such as 51S, such as 25-1S and so forth. But for now, we're just going to stick to our old guns because this analysis has been going really well, right? So I just want to keep you guys updated on this analysis, exactly how you're handling it and so forth, right? Cool. So let's start. Let's start from the biggest chart that we have at the moment, which is volatility 75. And we did speak about volatility 75 yesterday, and I did mention yesterday that look, I see volatility 75 going back to the downside, perhaps a slight retracement of this level and then going back to the downside. Now, I have dropped down to the H4 chart, and there is a bit of a pattern that I identified on the H4 chart, which we will drop down and have a look at shortly. But overall, as you can see on the daily chart, as usual, as I've spoken about the past couple of days or the past couple of weeks, is the overall momentum is to the downside. Price is coming off a very significant level as well that I have been speaking about for quite a while. And overall, I do anticipate price reaching back into this pink zone over to the downside. Now, this is not something that's going to happen immediately. This is something that's going to happen over the course of the next week. We will see perhaps price retesting this trend line. There will be a presence of buyers, obviously, off of this trend line, pushing the market back up because we've got the significant 1, 2, 3 bounce, 1, 2, 3 bounce, and price is forming this bit of a flag pattern that we see forming here with that push to the upside, and this little pushes in here as well. So price is forming a bit of a flag pattern. We've got 1, we've got 2 touches at the top, we've got 2 touches at the bottom, and we've got our 3rd touch at the top. So now we're anticipating a 3rd touch at the bottom, and which will then lead to price obviously trying to give us some sort of a breakout to the upside once it touches off the bottom here. Apologies for that. Once it touches off the bottom here, we'll anticipate price giving us some sort of a breakout to the upside, right? But that in essentially is not necessarily going to happen according to my analysis until we get perhaps another maybe break out to the upside around here, and then we'll see price come back to retest down here. But overall, like I said, forget about the structure and stuff like that in terms of this flag pattern and whatever be the case. We're focusing on what's happening over here at the moment, and that is telling me that we're going to see price trade back down. So let's focus on today's analysis, and the rest will sort of fall into place. If you follow the story, it's easy for you to predict what the end could be. So overall, like I have been saying for the past couple of months, I do foresee price looking at this weekly high in here, this weekly high. I do foresee price coming back to this weekly high at some point, right? Overall, we could see this little bounce in here, and then see a break to the upside since we're seeing the formation of a bullish flag on the daily chart. So let's drop down to the H4 chart, and you can see, oh wow, I did delete that. Oh wow, Ryan, well done, Ryan. Right. So looking at the date of the H4 chart, there is this bit of a pattern that we've got in here, right? You can see the formation of this pattern from that high to these highs in here, you can see that is forming as a very, very good continuation, or sorry, reversal pattern. So we could see a breakout to the upside, right? But overall for today, I do believe that price will be trading below these lows. It will be trading below these lows. Once we see price trading below these lows, then we'll get some sort of a rejection, some sort of a rejection perhaps of this low in here, some sort of a rejection of this low. And then we'll see price trading back up into around, say, around this level in here for another retest in and around this area before we see price push back down to that peak zone that I've highlighted on the daily chart. So overall, I am currently short-term bearish bias on volatility 75. As I have been saying for the past couple of days, however, is I'm not looking for any tradable opportunities at the moment because I want to see some clear structure develop on volatility 75 before I can jump in. We're getting a lot of weak rejections and all of that stuff, unclear structure in terms of what type of structure is developing and so forth. So I want to see some clear structure develop. And then I want to get in on, a more high volume move, something to the effect like this, which is what I anticipate should happen when we see that break to the upside. All right. Let's move on to volatility 50. This has been the performer of the week so far. You can see that it is playing out really, really well. We've got this bounce off the Fibonacci 79%, which is, like I said, I like to see a deeper retracement for entries. So in this instance here, I will anticipate that we'll see price bouncing around this area today, or maybe trading slightly higher, forming some sort of a, trend line support in this area here, following some sort of a trend line support. With a slight breakout to the upside, maybe retesting, the highs of these wicks in here. And then we'll see price trading back down, perhaps for another retest down into this level here. So that is more or less like, on this daily chart, we should see a further push to the upside or a pullback before we see that close to the upside, right? So that's what anything to that effect is currently possible. Just looking at the daily chart. So let's look at the H4 chart and let's see if we can see any sort of structure in here. That we can use to sort of, identify what's meant to happen here. Now, I do see this level in here as a possible level that we could see that pullback happening from, right? So we should be watching in that area in there and perhaps down in this area in here for possible bounce in here for the continuation back up to the upside. Now, we do see that price has created, this lower low structure, sort of a lower high and another lower low in here, right? This is obviously hidden on the 1 hour chart, but just focusing in on the structure in here, we see a break above structure, which has now changed our structure to a bullish structure, right? So we're going to be looking at exactly what's happening in there. And on a retracement and a retest in here, we can anticipate for further buying momentum to step into this market and push it slightly higher, right? Once that's obviously happened, then we can anticipate a retracement, like I said, on the daily chart, pull back to come and retest perhaps into these wicks in here, in this candles in here, before we see it pushing back into this gray zone to the upside. Let's drop down to the H1 and see if there's anything on here. Not really much I can say about the H1. As you can see, we've got this bit of a messy structure. We've got the candlesticks sort of getting a bit smaller as you see price fizzling up to the upside, right? So that's showing us a bit of a depletion of the bullish momentum in this market. So obviously we have to come back and we have to look for liquidity below, perhaps around these lows, look for liquidity below these lows or in these lows before we see price continue back on its upward movement. As we did say, overall, we are currently bullish bias on volatility 50, right? Let's go over to volatility 10, which is also really, really playing out really well at the moment in terms of the overall analysis that I've got on volatility 10, which is that it is going to trade up into this pink line, sorry, this pink zone that I've got highlighted in here, right? So that is more or less what we are looking at in there, right? I have been trying to anticipate the pullback, right? And unfortunately, I've been unable to take a nice trade back to the downside. We have been able to profit off a couple of these pushes to the downside that we see happening in here, right? But unfortunately, it hasn't really given us a proper deeper pullback into around these zones, right? So what I am looking for is, this does look like, we might be able to see a pullback happening sometime today because we've got one level of push, two levels of push, and this is the third level of push that we've got to the upside at the moment. So we could see a possible retracement, a correction happening in this market, you can then just like pull a trend line from here to here. And at minimum, you can anticipate a trend line retest. Once we see some structures being broken to the upside, then we'll look for the pullback and look to take that sell further down. But overall, I want to see price coming back to around these levels in here before I look to participate in the buyback to the upside, looking to take it up to that pink zone. So what we could see happening during the course of the week or today, perhaps, depending on how much volume comes in on the sell, is we could see price retest this area here before we see a pull back to the upside, maybe a retest of this trend line, because then that would be a breakout retest and a drop back into this area in here, right? So that's something that you can look at, during the course of today, some ideas that we are currently thinking about. I did speak about volatility 25-1S yesterday. So just to give you an update on that, I think it was 25-1S, I believe, that I spoke about. If it's not, I apologize. I stand corrected about that. But looking at this overall, I am looking at, no, I believe it was 50 actually. Sorry, it wasn't 25-1S, it was 50. Because I do remember we were talking about overall bullish bias to the upside. So as you can see, price is currently reacting to this bit of a gray zone that I've got on here, which means that we could see a pullback happening very soon. Well, if we do see that pullback happening, we'll anticipate a breakthrough this zone. So this zone shouldn't really have much importance, right? Once we see a break below this zone, then it's basically free falling from around here back down into this area in here. So I'll be watching. This is currently a chart that I am currently trading at the moment, so I am watching it very closely, and I am looking to participate in these buys back to the upside, right? So that's it from my side. Not really much more that I can speak about on these charts. Perhaps from around tomorrow or maybe even next week's sessions, I'll start, covering a currency, covering gold, covering GBP, JPY, and NASDAQ on these morning sessions, right? But for now, it's just specific to volatility. Perhaps from next week, I'll introduce those. Let's just see how the volatility market is playing out. The last thing I want to do is to be focused on too many things. That is when I then start to miss out on setups, and really good setups as well. So I want to focus on what's currently moving, right? And if we do see a slowdown, perhaps once we've picked up, possible entries on these volatility charts, then I can start to focus on the others, because then all we'll be doing on volatility charts is we'll be scaling in on entries, right? So for now, we're still going to just be hyper focused on the synthetics and perhaps move over to the others once we do pick up entries on here. So that's it from my side. Catch up with you guys tomorrow on around the same time to cover more or less the same thing. These sessions are getting a bit repetitive, if I might say so. So it's just a matter of following the story. So until next time, it's been a pleasure as always to share. Wishing you a blessed and profitable trading day, and I'll catch up with you guys next time.